I love a good McDonald's breakfast burrito, especially with hot sauce. I love them so much that when the drive-thru is backed up, I'll get out of my car like a peasant and go inside. Yesterday was the day where I had to go inside. I was already running late for work and was hungry and impatient. A girl stood in front of the door like she was going to come out, blocking it with her body, but still pushing it from the inside so I could come through. But she wasn't coming out, if that makes any sense. I went through the door and said thanks. Instead of her leaving, she closed the door behind me and sat down at a table. I forgot about her while I was waiting for my food. Back outside, walking to my car, I hear, "Ma'am, ma'am." I ignored the voice as I'm pretty late for work now. What caught my attention was seeing from behind me a woman with a suitcase running at me and shouting, "Ignoring me is rude, ma'am. I know you can hear me." At this point, I'm at my car and I'm able to get my driver's door open. I felt safer now that I was inside my car. For some people's perspective, I had parked in the spot that is surrounded on the driver's side and front of the car by concrete and rocks, meaning there is no car in front of me or behind me. Instead of asking me for money to make a phone call, etc., this woman, I say woman, but she must have been in her early 20s, well dressed, nice coat, hat, had a new backpack, and a great traveler suitcase, demanded I give her a ride by saying, "You have to give me a ride to the terminal." I say, "I can't as I'm running late for work, and the terminal is a literal cakewalk from where we are." She continues to demand that I take her, rather than ask, and I start getting angry. I realize there's no reasoning with her, so I thought I'd put an end to it. I tell her, "I'm not taking you anywhere, I'm leaving." And as I'm turning on my car, this woman starts tugging on my passenger's door handle and pounding on my window. I'm glad that my Jeep is old school with manual locks. No way my passenger door was unlocked. Once she realized she wasn't getting in, she ditched her suitcase and ran behind my Jeep. She began digging through her purse and pounding on my rear window glass. If you have an older Jeep, you know that the glass on the back window is pretty thin. The whole time she's screaming at me. With her digging through her purse, my first thought is she's gonna slash my tires or shoot at me. Fortunately, I was able to put the Jeep in four-wheel drive and roll up over the concrete and rock parking enclosure. I have oversized mudding tires and a serious lack of Jeep perspective and peel the hell out of there. She chased me to the sidewalk and I lost sight of her after that. So crazy McDonald's lady, let's not meet. A few things. Am I a bad person for not giving her a ride? But I've also read a lot of stories about good Samaritans getting mugged and whatever for letting people into their personal vehicles or personal space. 2. How did she get to McDonald's in the first place, especially with a backpack and a suitcase? She must have gotten a ride or walked there. Why not continue the ride or walk once she was done at McDonald's? She had a working phone. It was in her hand and lit up when she was first demanding a ride. 3. What if I had given her a ride and there were people waiting at the terminal? What if this was a team operation? 4. If she asked me for money, she would have gotten a $20 bill, but she didn't ask for money. I have a lot more thoughts about this, but I'll end it here. I used to work at a McDonald's, and every night this lady would walk in, always talking to herself. We thought she had problems or something. Me and the coworkers found it creepy at first, then we started to listen to what she would be saying about somebody named John. Now every time she would come, we would ask her if John wanted anything. Just about every time she said yes. Then one rainy day, me and the crew were doing the usual, and she walked in. She had tears crawling down her cheeks, and her mascara was all over her eyes. I was about to ask her if she was okay, and then she started confessing, I killed him. I and my coworkers are super confused and scared. You killed John? I say. She silently nods her head. My coworker noticed and heard the whole thing too. We are lost for words. She says nothing and just walks out into the rain, and that's the last we ever seen or heard of her. One night, I was going to McDonald's to get me the new McRib that was just re-released. When I was walking there, a tall guy smoking a cigarette began to follow me. Me, A small, skinny, 5'3", 19-year-old girl was horrified. Once I get to the McDonald's, I get inside, and so does the tall man. He gets a booth right by me, and just starts to stare at me. I smiled at him, and then flipped him the bird. I know this story isn't scary right now, but like 4 days ago, I was watching my local news, and they were interviewing someone, and the report said, well-known criminal, known for several murders of the last 5 years, and he would go around and murder people that would walk around by themselves at night. He was crazy, and he mostly denied all the questions, and that was the same guy I saw at the McDonald's. Anyways, weird McDonald's guy, I hope you rot in prison, and you don't ever follow me around like that ever again, and let's never meet again. One night, me and my friends, all male, went out to see a baseball game in our city. It was nothing big since we lived in a kind of small town, but afterwards we decided to go down to the McDonald's that was just down the street. We walked down the dark path and got there. We ordered our food and sat down. It was the basic gray, modern, lifeless building model, which had a big window out to the front where you could see out of. I sat on the seat across from my friend facing that window, and I glanced out the window to see a homeless looking person staring at me, and we accidentally made eye contact. I awkwardly looked away. About 40 minutes later, we are walking out of the restaurant when the same man from earlier walks up to us. "Why were you looking at me?" he said in a weird raspy voice. The man looked to be on something and all beaten up. I just say, "Sorry, I accidentally looked at you," and walked off. He was slowly turning around, and at this point I was across the street. "Give me your money," he yells. I know this will sound anticlimactic, but we just ran away, and we heard him screaming and cussing in the back. It doesn't sound scary, but it was terrifying when it happened, and the next week, someone was shot in that parking lot. And on the news report, it showed a picture from the day he was found guilty, and it was the same guy. I'm so grateful I got out of there alive, and ran off instead of trying to pick a fight. Update, for all of you guys wondering, the guy that got shot is alright. He only got shot in the leg. Nowhere important. Thank you for listening to my story. My name is Peter, and I am a 36-year-old male. I'm a trucker, and I have a lot of messed up and crazy stories, but of all of them, this is the most terrifying for me. It was crazy, and whenever I bring it up, most people don't believe me. It happened back when I first started, at the age of 31. It was my third truck I ever drove. I was going down this huge highway when I saw there was an exit with a McDonald's, and the McDonald's was connected to a gas station right in the little town it leads to. I was starving, and I've been driving for hours, and haven't made any stops besides to use the restroom and get another soda. So I take the exit and pull into the gas station and McDonald's building, which is surprisingly busy for the time. It was 1:30 a.m. I get out of my truck and begin to walk in, and then ordered. As I'm ordering, I look to see a man wearing dirty clothes and no food or drink on the table, just staring at me. I look at him and he quickly pulls out his old phone he had and acts like he wasn't just staring at me. I eat my food and get up to leave, and when I do, the same man from before gets up. I walk out of the door and I'm halfway to the gas pumps. I realize nobody else is out right now. I get to where my truck is, which is kind of in a dark area, and begin to pull out my keys, when I feel an arm come around my throat and see a knife in the hand. I realize this is the man from inside. He whispers, "Put the key in and let's get in." I comply. Once we are inside, he starts saying he needs to get to New Mexico. I'm currently in Florida, so a drive to New Mexico would take hours. I tell him I'm sorry, but that would take hours. My company will be looking for me, and he also might get caught. He then pulls out a small handgun and tells me just to do it. I turn my car on and tell him I will take him there. 3 hours onto the road, he tells me to give me all my money, cards, and ID. Everything except for my license, basically. And at this point, it's 4:30 a.m. I'm still struggling to stay awake. I'm closing my eyes and almost fell asleep when I get slapped in the face really hard, and that keeps me up for another hour. He then tells me he doesn't know how to drive and we will be going to one of his friend's hotel rooms for the night. My theory is that the other person, or friend or whatever, who bought the room was probably in another state or something, and the guy I was with didn't buy it, so he wouldn't get caught with the room on his card if I ran off. We get to this rundown motel. Yes, not hotel like I was promised, but motel, and we each get a bed. He tells me to stay asleep and he will get me up in the morning, but he has his gun ready and we still got hours of driving to do the next day. And if I'm being honest, I was so tired I couldn't even remember what state we were in. I just listened to my GPS the whole time and did not pay attention to what state we went into last. But I did remember entering Arkansas fairly recently. I was either there or in Oklahoma. Well, I do get some sleep, and the next morning the guy slaps me awake at around 3 p.m. We got to the motel around 8 a.m. That's why I slept in so late. And he gives me those gas station energy pills and an energy drink. As we are walking out, we have to go by the front desk. And as I walk around the front desk, I run up to the lady and begin to beg her to help me. And the criminal guy was just walking out the door, and then he ran back and pushed me to the floor. At this point, the poor lady behind the desk was screaming. The man pulled a handgun out and screamed, "I don't care if I go to prison, shut your damn mouth." And I get a shot of adrenaline and pull the guy off of me. He accidentally shoots one shot off and hits the door, which was made of glass, putting a hole in it, and glass fell onto me. He got up and kicked my face really hard, giving me a bloody nose and also broke my nose. He screamed, "Give me the keys." I could barely make out what he was saying over the front desk lady screaming so loud. I tossed him the keys and he ran out into the truck, but it was too late. There was an officer patrolling the area, and he heard the shot and called backup. The criminal tried to run away, but was tackled and handcuffed. He was arrested for a string of crimes. He got 14 years behind bars. Now, I haven't completely given up on trucking, but I do now always bring a partner with me. So, more of the story, always check your surroundings. This all would have not happened if I would have not left right when the shady guy was getting up too. Anyways, thanks for reading. And the criminal from McDonald's, I never got your name, but let's never meet again. I live right by McDonald's, and it is in a kind of shady part of town. I hate living here. There's so much crime that goes on around where I live, but I didn't come here to rant about my neighborhood. I have a story to tell. I am a thin 19-year-old woman, and I do not look aggressive or strong at all, which is probably why I was targeted for this crime. Anyways, one night, it was about 2:20 a.m., and I decided to get some late night dinner. I just got home from my job. I'm a 911 operator. I was using my blue 2003 Ford Crown Victoria, and as I was pulling into the McDonald's, there was a group of young-looking people, maybe 5 or 6 in a circle talking. What I know now was some kind of loan deal. I get out of my car and go into the restaurant. 2 of those young people from outside come up to me inside the restaurant. They look very weird. They looked to be on something. They stunk and had ripped up clothes on. And one of their shirts was so ripped up, it barely looked like he was wearing one at all. Remember, this was a dirty and dangerous McDonald's. Hell, the M wasn't even on the sign anymore, because it fell off. The boys started talking to me in their very weird voices, almost deep sounding, but had lots of cracks, and sounded really rough. They were talking about how my car was very cool, and if it was from the 1960s. I tell them, no, it's not from the 1960s. It was just a cheap 2003 car I got off Craigslist. But then they asked even more questions. One even being, how's Craigslist? Haven't talked to that dude in a minute. My food gets ready and I eat. And the 2 guys are with me and stealing my fries. I just give them dirty looks, but they just straight up ignore me. I also see one of them is blind in one eye. I eventually just toss the rest of my half-eaten sandwich and my drink I barely drank because I was so weirded out by them. I leave and go to my car, and when I get there, one of the boys are laying on the floor, leaning on a street light in the empty parking space by my passenger door. He looked to be asleep or passed out. What's in my car? I'm startled by a tap on my window. It's the two boys from inside the building. Wow, this is a cool car, one says. That weirds me out, but then my car starts to shake. I turn around and see nothing. When I turn back to look at the two boys, one has a gun in his hand. He says in his weird voice, and with his messed up grammar, "Give us the car." And I am terrified and back out the parking spot and see another one of the boys crawl out from behind my car with my license plate. It was a guy pretending to be passed out. Then I hear, "I saw that, the cops are on their way." One of the workers ran through the door of the building and yelled at that boy. And then he tossed my plate into my back window, putting a small crack in it, and ran off with the other one. The last one standing there, aka the half-blind one, is still standing there with the gun in his hand. He must have been on something or had something wrong with him because he was just standing there. I quickly back up again to get ready to leave the parking lot, and he shoots one shot into my tire, and then I stop my car, and then he sort of jogs away. Then like 3 minutes later the cops show up, and they catch them. They were up the street bashing up another car, and then they started questioning them right there on the spot. They said they were planning on stealing my car, and when that didn't work out, they wanted to steal the other one, but made too much noise and got caught. Also, why the hell did they have to tear it to pieces if they wanted to steal it? Anyways, after telling their story right there on the spot, they were arrested and put into juvenile hall and were also fined. Also, I didn't have good insurance at the time, so they went and fixed my tire. So for the next 4 months, I rode with a super flat tire in my car. But I'm better now, and we are teens from the McDonald's. Let's never have to meet again.